Welcome to the driving seat.
Yeah!
Ladies and gentlemen, Shehr, welcome to the driving seat.
I'm back.
Yeah, for round two. So last time we talked, about both of us, but the focus was mainly on Shehr, and about cultural differences, about Pakistan and the other countries where Shehr has lived, and about religion, and a couple of other subjects we touched upon.
Girls.
And girls,
Yeah.
also important. Women. And this week, Shehr came back to me after the podcast and said, like, hey, all nice and cool that you put me on the spot. I would like to put you on the spot. So here we are. And it's going to be difficult for me to let go of control, but...
Well, in some sense, now you're in the driving seat.
Oh, yeah, I am in the driving seat. Oh, yeah, so, which means that I am in control.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So, take it away. I'm curious.
Well, I noticed that you got a new painting up on your wall.
True.
It looks quite familiar.
In what sense?
Is it maybe Dragon Ball Z?
It is. It's Krillin. Maybe should I show it to the camera for a sec?
Please,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Wow.
Pretty neat, right? And it's not the only Dragon Ball painting you have in your house. There's another one in your...
True. I have another one in the bedroom. That's young Goku. And that's actually the very first painting I made. I made 3 in total now, like all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So the first one was Goku, young Goku, which is like a wide canvas, and then I made a canvas for a friend of mine, namely a nude version of Android 18.
Right. For a moment, I thought you were gonna say a nude version of Goku.
No.
There was a young version, and then there's a nude version.
No. There was also a lot of fun to paint that one.
Yeah.
I
can imagine.
Yeah. And finally, I did Krillin. I was like in between projects because my project at CarNext ended prematurely, and I thought at some point, okay, let's take out the old brush and paint. And I just took a still that I thought was cool, and I used it to make a sketch and then paint it.
What do you think brings you back to Dragon Ball Z?
Yeah, so it's just good memories. So when I was still living in Zeeland, I don't know how old I was, I guess around 12 or 13, 13, 14, I was hanging out with Thijs Tieleman, and shout out to Thijs Tieleman. And we would, me and Rian, another friend of mine, would often go to Thijs. I'm not sure if Rian was that big on Dragon Ball Z, but I was. And like at my place, we only had the national channels. So there was 1, 2, and 3, and then 1, 2 from the Belgium national television. And at Thijs, they at least already had like satellite, but still they didn't broadcast Dragon Ball Z on there.
Yep.
So, but his grandparents, they had cable television, and their Dragon Ball Z was broadcast.
Fancy grandparents.
Yeah. So his grandma recorded Dragon Ball Z every week.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's solid.
And then it was like, as soon as the VHS tapes came in, I was like, oh my God. And then you were watching Cell, Charge for 3 episodes. And it's like, until next week. I was like, oh my God.
Still there.
Yeah. It's like, whoa.
Never gets old though.
No. But the nice thing is now that you have, so that's the old school Dragon Ball Z series. And I don't know how long it is, like, but then you have Dragon Ball Kai, and there they cut out certain parts because they don't really add anything to the plot. So that you can go through it a bit quicker. Still, it's 98 episodes of 20 minutes, so it's still a lot to go through. But at least it's a little bit shorter. So yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I was also when I was really small. Not. It was also my grandparents' home.
Uh-huh.
We would be there for during our vacations in the summers, and there would be just this one TV for me and my cousins. Maybe it was 6 or 8 of us. We'd all just be glued to the screen, watching it on Cartoon Network.
Ah, nice.
So I'm quite sure it was pirated, but it was amazing. We watched the what saga? The very first one with Frieza saga.
Yeah, the Frieza saga.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I also watched through that now, but then also the Cell saga, which follows up like one episode after it's immediately the new saga.
Yeah, just to feel the nostalgia, I think I watched it again a few years back.
Okay, yeah.
And the second time when I'm watching it, feel like there are some deep-seated lessons in the show. Did you also feel that?
Yeah. So I wasn't too aware of it, of course, when I was younger and I saw it for the very first time. But now, especially with the Super Saiyans and Goku in particular, that he embraces getting knocked down and then getting up again, right? And with the Saiyans in particular, when they have a near-death experience and their body's almost completely destroyed, when they come back stronger.
Yeah.
And that's Nietzsche. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. 101.
Yeah.
So, but
Do you
that's
believe in that?
yeah, definitely up to a certain extent. Like certain experiences can definitely crush you, but if they don't kill you and you manage to find some way to incorporate the lessons that you've learned because of that, I think you can definitely come back stronger. And it's not physical strength, of course.
Not just
physical strength. Yeah, of course. Yeah, in a very literal sense, if you go to the gym, you wear yourself out, and then you should be able to come back stronger. But yeah, as with age, that ability also declines, of course. But I think it's mostly applies to metaphysical, so psychological strength, being able to go through bigger challenges. And of course, if you're traumatized, then it's a different story. Then it's a different ballgame, I think. Then you are not more weaponized against challenges that you face throughout life. But I don't think that's where the comparison ends. Because the Saiyans also, when there's a full moon and they still have their tail, then they turn into a big ape, right?
And that's something which resonates with you?
Well, I don't turn into a great ape, but that also reminds me of Nietzsche again. And that's the path between the natural or the primordial at the abyss, and then there's a string where you walk over, and then at the end there's the Übermensch or the Superman. Of course, totally misconstrued door the Nazis in the Second World War, but in essence, it's a very interesting and appealing theory, I think. So when there's a full moon, he becomes the animal. So then he stands like he's totally out of control. Not only he, but all the other Super Saiyans are out of control. And what they are trying to do is master their control, master their power, and they become more and more powerful, and use it for the good, right? So they're trying to go over that thin line and become more than they actually are at the beginning. So they try to go from that ape state into someone who's a protector of their people, of the planet, very literally in different sagas.
Interesting that you make the distinction between mastering power and mastering control. Why do you make that?
That was more of a slip of the tongue.
Okay,
it was mostly about mastering their power, harnessing their power, and using it for the good.
All right.
Yeah. but maybe there's something to say about mastering their control as well.
What resonates with me when it comes to the idea of do or die, or
Mm-hmm.
what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So my probably most difficult situation in life was doing my thesis.
Uh-huh.
So basically, I put it off for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like I would go talk to my professor, but I'm not really thinking about it. And I'm near the deadline. There are about 2 weeks to go to write the thesis.
Uh-huh.
Did we talk about this last time?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. So 2 weeks, and I had about 2 weeks, and then I was kind of forced to just pick a topic and write it because I have to submit something for my bachelor's.
Do it. Yeah.
And I was just at night just really just facing myself.
Yeah.
Because I had already extended my bachelor's by a year.
Uh-huh.
It felt like almost I did have a choice whether I wanted to do it one more year, but I told myself that was an impossible choice to make, impossible decision to have.
Yeah.
And I basically just told myself that there's just one path left, and that's to conquer it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure whether I believed I could or not. It was just that I was stuck in a place, and I knew that, I stopped considering, I did have these doubts in my mind, but then I would
Mhm.
say, you know what, we're not thinking about that just for this one day.
Yeah.
We're not thinking about that. We're just thinking about doing this. So
Mhm.
it's like, okay, now can we sit down?
You were able to force yourself?
Yes, I was able to force myself. It's obviously you kind of the more consecutive days you do it,
Yeah, the easier it gets.
The easier it gets. The first day was obviously difficult, but that's the main battle that you have to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, fair enough. For me, because I also wrote a thesis, bachelor and master thesis. I was surprised how easy it went for me, because I knew it was going to be difficult, and so I planned really early on. Okay, I'm just going to spend this much amount of time every day on it, so it never became a daunting task because it was cut up in chunks anyway.
That's the wise way to go. So
Yeah.
if any kids are watching, if you're about to do your thesis soon,
Start early and
start early. Think
Yeah,
about
exactly.
it now.
Yeah, and start reading early, so that you also know what you want to do it about, because you know what like tickles your brain. And for me, of course, I did it about literature, and I was just reading a lot about different things. I knew I was interested in science fiction, but what are you going to say about science fiction? So for my bachelor thesis, it was all still quite a broad topic. So it was about cyberpunk, and how cyberpunk can be used to say something about the state of current affairs, which is obvious because that's why it's written in the first place. And then the second, like the master's thesis, I could also go into depth more. And it was a bit more of a specific topic, namely human identity in the work of Philip K. Dick. Sorry. So that's definitely an interesting topic. But getting back to Nietzsche and Dragon Ball Z, because there's also a distinction between, for instance, how Goku goes about his powers and Vegeta, right?
Uh-huh.
Vegeta has a really obvious character flaw, which is that he's super arrogant.
Can you lay it down, the two differences between them?
Yeah, so Goku has some sort of naivety. He just wants to get better. He wants to become better, more powerful, but also become a better person. And he is really all about fairness. So even if an enemy is evil, he still wants to win the fair way, while others are, and because he has some sort of Saiyan pride. That is something he has in common with Vegeta, I would say. But with Vegeta, Vegeta really wants to be the best for the sake of being the best, the most powerful,
Yep.
and
The Prince of Saiyan.
the Prince of Saiyan. So yeah, he really wants to live up to that title and that heritage, but he can't because Goku is better and stronger.
But they're both working hard.
Yeah, they're both working hard, of course. Yeah, they have a strong working ethos in that sense.
Do you think it's fair that it ends up being that Goku is always maybe one step ahead of Vegeta?
Yeah, because his intentions are a bit more pure, right? So he is supposedly, and that's what they say in the series, like a guy with a heart of gold. And yeah, he has that sort of innocence, which Vegeta definitely doesn't, because Vegeta killed a lot of innocent people as well. And eventually you forget that a little bit, but yeah, he was a fucking war criminal. Yeah. But that's also interesting about Vegeta. He has like a character arc, right? He develops because eventually he becomes a bit more soft, or we sympathize a lot more with him because he starts a family and he becomes a father figure, and then we also see that he is also protective of, for instance, Trunks, his son, and that he's not only interested in his own interests.
And he struggles as well.
Yeah. Of course, he struggles a lot because he's like frustrated that he can't achieve that ultimate goal that he has, which is to become the ultimate warrior. But then, yeah, you also see that, and he starts to accept his fate more and more. So that's also like, yeah, a cool character development, I would say, which is really nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you studied literature.
Indeed, I did. Yeah.
And what do you do now?
I'm a software tester for 5 years already.
Okay.
Yeah, freelance since the 1st of December of last year.
How does that work out?
Yeah, so I actually did a little vlog on becoming freelance, but not really about how I became a freelance software tester coming from literature. But 5 years ago, I was a bit more than 5 years ago. I was the manager of the Cheese Museum here in Amsterdam, and
very important position.
Very important position.
Yep.
A lot of prestige carried with that
sure.
title.
Cheese Museum.
Yeah.
Of Amsterdam.
Of Amsterdam. Yeah. But I was a bit in a clinch with the owners, which eventually,
as you should,
which eventually ended up in a lawsuit, which I won.
Managers should win.
Yeah. Now, so they weren't paying out the benefits that you should get when you work in the evenings or on Sundays, which you are allowed, which you should get when you work in a certain industry. That's in the Central Labor Agreement. And I told them like, hey, you should pay this money. And they were like, no, but we already compensate people by giving them smoke breaks and just paying them still. I'm like, I'm not even smoking. And yeah, we also give money for people to get food when they have to work after a certain hour, which they were legally obliged to do. And so I was like, yeah, okay, none of these reasons make sense. And also you haven't given me a choice. So give me the money. I made an overview of how much money they owed me. I went to a lawyer. Well, first I went to them. I was like, this is how much money you owe me. And they was like, no, we're not going to pay it.
Hold up.
Yeah.
So one day you decide you're not getting enough benefits from the company. So when you go home, you open up an Excel sheet or some piece of paper and start calculating how much you are owed by the company the next morning or whenever. You go up with that piece of paper and show it to the owner that...
Nah, it was more of an escalation, which I think is a smart thing to do when you have any disagreement with your employer. Don't pull out the big guns immediately. Right. So
just making that...
Yeah. I said like, hey, you're not sticking to the labor agreements. And I feel like as a manager, I should say something about it because that's bad management.
If not me, who?
Yeah, exactly.
Quoting Goku.
And then they were like, oh, yeah, we'll look into it. So they were still behaving as if they could, like, if we don't say anything about it, then maybe he will shut up at some point. But then I said, like, hey, this is a serious problem. And, you also owe me money. And and then they tried to ignore it, and eventually they needed to have a conversation with me as well about how we run the shop, right? Because the turnover was also going down because there was less people coming in. I was focusing on, okay, let's try as a shop to sell more to individual customers so that we can compensate a little bit for the turnover going down. Yeah, then they came and they had complaints like, oh yeah, it doesn't look nice enough, and I think you as a manager have a bit of a bad attitude, because they were trying to throw dirt on me because of this that was on the back of their mind. I was like, because we feel like you're not motivated enough, and it shows that other people then are also not motivated. It's like, maybe they're not motivated because you're not paying them properly. So I was like, back.
Was it easy finding a lawyer for something like this?
Yeah, so I was under a certain wage, below a certain wage. So then you have a juridisch loket here, which is really well organized here in the Netherlands. I love that particular type of system. You go there, and then you get representation appointed to you, and you have to only pay a certain amount of money depending on how much you make, so that you can still afford it.
Amount.
No. So I had to pay a flat fee of 680 euros or something. I think it was
upfront consultation fee, or how does that work?
Upfront, and then the rest didn't matter how often I would meet my lawyer, how many consultations there were. I didn't have to pay any euro extra.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's really good. So that took a long time though. It took 1.5 years to go through that entire process. And because then, of course, also from the lawyer's office, they had to send similar letters to them like, hey, you're doing something wrong. And this is the amount of money that... and they kept postponing, but eventually they had to pay up. So it was good. Yeah, it was... before taxes, almost 8,000 euros. So it was like a sweet amount of money. Yeah.
And how long had you been working there?
God, that's a good question. How long did I work there? I think about 2 years, but I worked a lot of the weekends and a lot of the evenings.
Okay.
So that's why it was a lot of money. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So one similar situation, I don't really have a problem. But some people in my building are sometimes complaining about the costing structure of how you do extra facilities in real estate.
Oh, yeah.
And I think real estate has a lot of money, so there are enough lawyers and agencies which are organized to deal with cases and go do lawsuits.
Yeah.
But one of the deterrents that the real estate industry has is that they'll kind of, okay, you can win some money now, but we'll note you down, and you're not going to get a house.
That's not a nice trade-off.
No. Did you feel any repercussions after making and successfully?
I mean, maybe if I would go look for another job in the cheese sector, that there would be talk of like, hey, this guy he sues his employers. Yeah. But no. These guys were also. Like, they have a lot of money because they have a couple of stores, but in the big picture, they're a small game. So I didn't fear any repercussions. I was nervous, though. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen, right? Yeah. I mean, it's not every day that you sue your employer. But I'm really happy I did. Not just for the money, which was nice because I didn't have a lot, but mostly about the experience. And, like, when you win, oh, man, you feel on top of the world. That's crazy. And this was also at the same time as I was in the violent abusive relationship. So I was like, I managed to pull this all off at the same time. Like, that was a major feat. Like I was really proud of myself. I still am. Like, awesome, if I think about that, like, I'm like, fuck, I did that. Yeah, that's really cool. So, but that of course that explains why my contract was not extended. Which was stupid from them, because I wasn't going to sue them while I was still in working for them. But as soon as they terminated my contract, it was like, okay, I get the lawyer and I get this ball rolling. Of course.
So we were on the literature topic.
Yeah.
How do you go from literature to coding?
Oh yeah. I needed to find a job, and I was like, in literature, what kind of a job are you gonna get?
Yeah.
Right after my master's, I briefly did a master's in to become a first degree teacher. So then you are allowed to give lessons at secondary school.
Okay.
On the higher grades. So in the Netherlands, that's HAVO, VWO, and then the higher classes. So 4, 5, and 6. Well, I also had an internship, of course, which was in the north when I was still living there. And man, that it bored the living daylights out of me to be in that class in a classic setup, which I was used to from my own secondary school, which I found very, very boring and understimulating. I was like, no, I can't do this. So I decided I quit, and the person who was like mentoring me, the English teacher, he said like, yeah, if I had been your age and I could have decided knowing what I know now, I would have done the same thing. So I felt supported in making that decision and getting out.
Okay.
I tried copywriting, which I thought is similar to doing something with literature. It's something with text. It's not, but it's really difficult to get into publishing houses. I thought about like maybe doing some PhD, but then I saw how hard people had to work for that for little money, and also have to invest in one particular topic for years on end.
Yep.
And the input and the reward that you get for it are skewed as far as I'm concerned. So I thought I'm going to do something completely different.
Got it.
Yeah. And a friend of mine who studied Russian literature.
How old were you then?
So this is 5 years ago. I'm 34 now, so 29, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
29, you've finished your master's in literature. You've tried a few jobs.
Yeah.
Find it dead boring.
Yeah.
Or not stimulating.
Yeah.
Intellectually.
Yeah.
You quit your job and you're thinking, I need to do something.
Yeah. Which
How
preferably makes a lot of money, and you don't have to do a lot for it.
Okay,
no,
so
I'm kidding.
At least you've got the requirements down.
No, it also needed. I wanted it to be something that's interesting for a longer time, where you can also still like continually learn. That's in a lot of places, of course, but I find that definitely to be the case in IT. Like, it has a social aspect, it has a very technical aspect, and you can specialize. But even if you specialize, you can still go back and try something else.
Yep.
So it's really diverse, and it's also a easily transferable skill. I talked to a friend of mine who studied Russian, Iko Davids. Shout out to him.
Shout out to you.
Yeah, and he worked for Keylane, an insurance company, as a software tester. So I talked to him like, what do you do actually? He had a little bit more affinity with computers and software than I did, because he was also involved in like a small company before, which I was also really interested in. So I visited him one time when he was busy with the company. They were doing some stuff with the electronic patient dossier, and I thought I was a little bit intimidated. Like, oh, you know a little bit more about software than I do. Maybe this is not for me. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. Eventually, I was like, come on, let's do it. What can happen, you know? Then I talked to two people who made the switch from neuroscience to IT, not necessarily software testing. I was actually in a week where I sort of fled Amsterdam because I was still in that abusive relationship. And I was like, okay, I have to, this is the perfect opportunity I have. Like, I'm in Zeeland, there's not much going on. So I have time and ease of mind to ask those people. So I called them both, like on separate occasions, of course. And I didn't know them, but I talked to them for 45 minutes. And then I had a game plan afterwards. Like, they said, like, okay, just indicate on your LinkedIn that you are looking for a traineeship. And then recruiters will approach you, trust me. So I did that. I pimped my LinkedIn a little bit so it looked professional and nice. And then soon enough, I had several recruiters approach me. I also looked for traineeships myself, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think the most important thing is to ask your friends to endorse you for skills on LinkedIn, right?
well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's the first thing where they look, but it's
that's
always
the first
not.
thing we did in
Yeah?
when we were in university. We're just opening up our LinkedIns, and it's like, all right, so I saw you do MATLAB in class.
Yeah.
All of my 5 friends, just send them, okay, I verify he's good in MATLAB. And they would do the same, and it's just a circular ass kissing. And none of us are good at it.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, it helps the algorithm.
Yeah, nice. That's good. That's a good technique as well. So then I was invited to come and do some sort of test, right? So also, the important note with this is that I finished my university. So a lot of these traineeships require you to have finished University of Applied Science, bachelor or degree, or a university degree, bachelor or master's.
Yeah. Do you think it's a fair requirement?
Yeah, I find that very tough.
After
because the first company that I then started working with,
yes,
they had people doing the same work as I did, and what they asked for them to the client was the same amount, yet they made a shit ton of less than I did, and they also settled them up with a huge debt.
Can you simplify that?
So, I'll intertwine it with the story, so to make it chronological. So first, to get back to the test, I was invited to do a test, first at one company, then I made one mistake too many or something, so I wasn't hired for that company. Yeah. It's like, oh, bummer. Then I got invited to another company, Cisca, which I eventually ended up working at, and they had the same test.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was like, it's my lucky day. So then I did pass the test, of course, and then I was hired. So other people also passed that test, people with a degree and people without a degree. Then we had a month of onboarding where we learned the testing basics. We got a couple of certificates, so requirements engineering and test management and Scrum, of course. So then with these 3 very quite basic degrees, we were placed in with a certain employer. No, you don't call it employer. What do you call it? Client.
So it's an agency, a company that you're working
Yeah, it's
for.
a secondment company.
Got it.
Yeah. And so people who didn't have that degree, they, for the month of onboarding...
The university degree.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yep. For the month of onboarding, they charged them an X amount. I don't know, like quite a bit.
They charge the clients?
No, they charged them. So that's on their name within the company, and they built that off. And so after 2 years, they have paid back that amount, but they don't have to physically pay it back. It just becomes less. So if they would leave the company prematurely, then they would have to pay it, right?
So if you went to work for that company and you had to pay for the education?
I didn't.
Okay.
No.
You did not.
No.
Then who did?
So the company provided that themselves. There was also for me there was a certain amount, but after 1 year that would already be zero, and for them it was longer, I believe.
For the client?
No, for those people without a degree.
But you didn't have a degree.
I did have a degree.
Which one? Literature.
English literature. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be in IT or whatever.
So as long as you have a degree.
Just if you have a degree, then
okay.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Look at that makes it worse.
Yeah. So as long as you had a degree, then it's fine. But yeah.
Well, my assumption that literature.
I mean, I think in some cases it makes sense that you have a degree because of what we spoke about before. You show that you are able to see through a longer trajectory and write a thesis. But yeah, a monkey could do that as well if you give him the right instructions, right?
And enough time.
And enough time, yeah.
Look at me.
Yeah. Not saying you're a monkey.
Well, not saying anything.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was not completely fair. But yeah, it also didn't bother me because I was not on that particular boat. So yeah, that's how I got into software testing.
Okay.
Long story short.
Do you ever feel that some things you learned in literature, you can draw parallels to in your work?
Yeah, but
or not?
Yeah, I think so. Like certain skills that you require for being able to analyze literature also come in handy, are maybe not absolutely necessary, but come in handy when testing software, like analytical skills. So, of course, the very foundations of software and code eventually come from Noam Chomsky, like one of the most important thinkers of the past century, and maybe politically speaking also of this century. But he's getting old, with all due respect. But he laid down the universal language theory.
Sure.
Yeah. And so we learned at uni, and that has less to do with literature, more about language, to analyze things very thoroughly, like to the very smallest bits of language, what comprise a language, and that I think you can also use in your analysis of code and of software. So you use similar skills.
Did you know one of the language researchers that works with monkeys? I don't recall the name. So they ended up finding the smartest monkey, and they named it Noam Chomsky. Just a little something I remember.
That's great. Noam Chomsky.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, there's also like what I also like and I'm interested in is like how do you get specific requirements on paper in such a way that it's clear for the business, like, oh yeah, this is what we want, and for the developer to understand like, oh, this is what they want, and that is a very complex game. Like they notoriously misunderstand each other, and as a tester you're often in between because eventually you have to test what the business expects. It also serves you if those requirements are very clear, so you don't have to go back to the business and say like, hey, these are the results, and then they say like, oh, this is not what we want. I was like, okay, then we have to go through it again.
Yep.
And so if you do it first time right, that's of course a lot better. That's very idealistic. It hardly ever goes right the first time, but that's why you go through short iterations.
You get a better start at least.
Yeah. You get a better start. Like at least it's a little bit closer to what we actually want. And so, of course, that is also language, and you can use normal language for that, like spoken language, or you can set some sort of rules. Like, okay, if we structured it in a certain way, like this is the background, this is the action, and this is the expected result. And you see slowly more and more of not slowly, but slowly. But that move has been going on for a long time already, that it goes more and more towards that direction. And I see that everywhere. Now I start a new assignment, and there I see it. At my first assignment, I didn't. They had like a change project, like huge, and then they had 1 million requirements. We just like put in an Excel sheet, and then like, there you go. It's like, nah, that's not gonna work. Never in 100 years.
Well, in 100 years?
No.
Okay. If you say so.
Yeah, no. So that's interesting to see, and that's also something that I want to contribute to, not just like stand at the end of the development process and say, okay, now you've written the code. Now I'm going to check if it matches the expectations of the business. And then if you do it like that, then you usually find out like that's not the case.
Is this a skill that someone can get good at? So, for example, let's say instead of you, someone who's coming from a literature background into, let's say, programming, someone who's first a programmer, where very almost analytical thinking, but tend to not have a focus too much into communication, simply because as far as you can deal with mathematical concepts, you're good. So for a person like that, if they wanted to get closer to what you are, which is also a good communicator, what would you suggest to them for getting better in the language of communicating, or some skills that?
I think it's mostly about the critical analysis of requirements and of people, verifying what people mean with what they say, and because you immediately, when you say something, I immediately have a certain interpretation, but if I repeat it to you, then I'm a lot more sure if you say, yes, that's what I mean, that's actually what you mean. If I just live on all of the assumptions, then I can get a fairly good picture, because I think we as humans are really good at getting a broad idea of what someone means.
Yep.
That's one of our strengths, I think. But with software, that's not good enough, because computers don't do gray area. They do ones and zeros. So it's really this way or that way, and it's not in between. So, therefore you have to be very precise. And so it's important to constantly verify what people mean. So whereas I think software developers and people from a technical background are very good in, and they also like usually that clarity. It's important to, if you can also provide that in the way people communicate with each other and streamline that process, which is difficult. It's a totally different skill set, but then you can really make yourself a very useful member in a team or an organization. I think people would really appreciate you. Also, maybe find you a little bit annoying because you're constantly asking critical questions, but that's your job. It should be everybody's job a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of jobs, let's talk about some serious stuff.
Oh shit.
Business, employments.
Uh-huh.
You've recently changed companies.
Yeah.
Why have you changed companies?
Yeah, it's not really by choice, although I really appreciate the new assignment. But I was working at CarNext, and I had just gotten an extension, actually. But they hit a bit of a rough patch. We were already waiting for a strategy from higher management. And but they saw that things were developing in a certain way in the market, and this is the automotive market. What they do is they buy formerly leased cars and then sell them again to mostly consumers. That's the largest piece of their market share.
Does the company buy the cars?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they were formerly part of LeasePlan, so then they were one company, then they became a separate company, then they were taken over by Automotive Constellation Group, which is situated in England, I believe. They also have Cinch, which is a sponsor of a football club, which I forgot which one. And but they are doing really well. And CarNext was also going on the up and up, but one of their several markets were declining. Okay. So they were actually losing money on them. So then they had to consolidate and cut off certain markets, consolidate. Also the main office in Amsterdam had to reduce staff to cut costs. And of course, as a freelancer, you're usually one of the first to go. But also people with a full contract, their contracts were terminated with good exiting terms though. But of course, Yeah, that's a bummer. It's a bummer to see that like a nice company with a nice company culture. I really liked the people there, the way they were working. It was all quite progressive and also innovative. Yeah, so it was cool. I mean, not necessarily cutting edge, but it was like appealing, the material and the tools they were working with. So yeah, it's a bummer that then it ends prematurely. Yeah. But then I was on the couch over there for 5 weeks.
Okay.
And then I found a place at APG. So
Well, you painted an amazing
I painted
photo.
the picture indeed. So
Yeah.
that was nice.
This would not have happened otherwise, right?
Probably not. No, no. But for the rest, I wasn't massively productive. It's okay. Sort of a holiday, I guess, but not really. And yeah, then via Richelle, shout out to Richelle, I found, so she's a recruiter. I found this place. Well, she first found another one. I didn't make that one. It was also quite an interesting company. They were into making a fitness app, and I'm really into fitness. So I was like, oh, super excited. Also, I was there and they just hit a big bag of money. So they got a huge investor and they were trying to upskill their company. So they were a startup and they were trying to become a scale up basically. But they didn't have a CTO yet. And so they were looking also
to step up.
Yeah, no. And they were looking for a tester who would really direct also certain technical decisions. I was like, yeah, that's not really me.
Okay.
I still thought it was a bummer that I didn't make it, but in the end, maybe it's not necessarily a bad thing because I wouldn't have been a great fit, I think, for the role that they wanted. I think in terms of company culture, I would have really fit in. Yeah, especially the content that they were busy with.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to not be accepted in the roles because that's the hiring process. You're looking for a good fit in all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. And so now I'm with a retirement fund. And it's interesting.
Yeah, okay. So for those hearing, Bram is no longer available.
No.
Yeah, you've lost your
Not
chance.
in any way.
Yeah. He's committed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How's yeah, sure. What should we talk about next?
I don't know. I am not the host this time.
Indeed. No, you are not. So, you mentioned you've been, well, I know personally that you grew up in a village.
Yeah.
You were in Amsterdam. Well, you moved to Amsterdam at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You maybe ran away from Amsterdam for a short period, and now you're back in the city.
Yeah.
For someone like me, who's a foreigner, who's only lived in Amsterdam, how would you describe the difference between your village and Amsterdam?
Wow. The difference is between day and night for me. Like I grew up outside of the village as well, so really on the countryside. So there's obviously things to do, but you have to be much more creative in terms of things that you want to do. Like as a kid, it was not that hard. Like I was playing outside and just running around, and that was enough. And at some point, it's not anymore, which is a shame. But I was really bored from the age of 14 hours. I was like, is this it? You know? So I got to know about Amsterdam because of my cousin and aunt lived here, and I came to visit them quite often in the Christmas holidays, which is great fun. But it's like, wow, the big city. And it was like, for a long time, also when I just moved to Amsterdam, I was like, this is the biggest city I've ever been in, you know? And yeah, on a global scale, Amsterdam is not that big.
How do you tell if a city is big?
There's lots of people in it.
All right. So the density.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Or the height of the buildings?
No, not necessarily.
All right.
No. It's interesting. Good question, because it's also about a certain feeling that you get with the city, right? It's also that there's a lots of foreigners coming into the city, which also makes it like it. Amsterdam acts on a global level, and as do other cities like New York. But New York is of course much bigger. But still, Amsterdam feels like a similar type of city because it's so much traffic going through it. So many tourists and expats that come and settle here. So it really feels like an international, really big city. Yeah, even though it doesn't even have 1 million of people in it.
The flow is indeed quite huge. Yeah. Is that it to the difference between? No.
So what a city on that scale brings with it is, of course, a lot of temptations, but also different stimuli. Like in Zeeland, you have to think of the things that you want to do. Like it has to come from within. And here you are much more easily carried away with whatever is going on around you. So you have the nightlife, for instance, and as a student, I was like really interested in that. You have much more easy access to soft drugs, for instance, but also harder drugs. I wasn't too interested in that, just a little bit here and there, which is also very convenient, but also a danger, of course. In Zeeland, you have to drive, or my parents live, you have to drive 35 kilometers to get it. Also, there it's normal if you have a car, if you live in the countryside, otherwise you cannot get anywhere. Like how the hell are you going to get groceries? And here I see it as a nuisance to would have a car, you know. It would be annoying.
Yeah.
I've had it for a while. I'd rather not have a car in Amsterdam. So those are a couple of differences. Temptations also in terms of just people. Both temptations in terms of women, of course, but also just stimuli. Just there's always people on the street. In Zeeland, would walk out of my parents' door and there's like absolute silence. There's nothing. The occasional bike cyclist or runner or something.
What do these stimuli look like in the city?
I think people, traffic, advertising, restaurants, bars, stuff like that. And it's difficult to hedge yourself from that, it's all coming in. You know, it's difficult to put a stop to it and say like, okay, now I'm sort of tired of it. Now turn it off. No, you can't.
Okay. Yeah. Well, sounds like this is something which bugs you. Have you thought about ways of dealing with it?
Yeah. So the way I've dealt with it over the last decade, I think, ever since I moved to Amsterdam, and I wasn't doing that before actually. Since I moved, was smoking weed because that makes me relaxed. Then things are not coming in that hard.
Sure.
That's not necessarily a healthy way of dealing with it, but I actually talked about it with a friend of mine yesterday, Alec Riquelme, shout out, about what was I gonna say?
Stimuli.
Yeah, and meditation. That maybe meditation would be a good idea.
Have you tried it?
I did try it, and what for me helps is go for a walk. Then if I go for a walk and I just go around the block or something, of course there's still all of this stimuli, but it's not coming in that much. You know, it's because I'm just focused on the walk and putting one foot in front of the other. That's kind of meditative. I've also tried a less active form of meditation for a while, but that's not really for me. It's too boring.
Okay.
I very actively try to not do anything, and I can do that for a while.
Yep.
And the other day when I was ill a couple of weeks ago, and I was in the morning. I often eat my skir with blueberries and sit on the couch and watch a football match. And now it's like, oh, there's a Shaolin breathing exercises with some a horse stance and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try it, and I did it, and I was so relaxed afterwards. Like, yeah, crazy. But then I'm like, I do that one time and then I don't do it again.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
For me, it's taken me a while to get into the meditation practice.
Mm-hmm.
What helped me a lot. So I've had a coach. Her name's Colleen. So shout out to Colleen. I worked with her on lots of other things around my life and just designing a life, so to speak.
Yeah.
But one of the things she helped me with was building a practice for meditation. And I think that's one of the most important things that I've worked on in the past 2 years. And I think only just now I'm really starting to get a hang of it.
It's like incorporating it into your routine, or
yes, my routine, or I would say it's even incorporated into my life. Like it's really just a part of it. That's quite an important element of how I go about with my day and night and whatever. And what helped me was Colleen suggests that, and she's a super PhD person who's done like a lot of research into building habits and the neuroscience that goes behind habits. You really want to start stupid simple and stupid easy. Like so for example, if you want to build firstly, I think if you should at least try meditation but you should try it really well. And for you to try it well, you have to reach a certain level of practice. And at that point, I think it's fair to make a decision whether you want this to be something big or not. But to get to that stage, you have to start really simple. Just ask yourself, what's the least amount of meditation time that you're ready to commit on a consistent basis. So for me, I started with 10 minutes, but I think even that is a bit ambitious. But you really think that, okay, you know what?
10 minutes,
10 minutes a day. I've got 24 hours. I can find 10 minutes. I'll do it. But I tried that, and eventually I scale up too fast, and then you're like, oh shit, this is
too much.
Too much work. It feels out of like I have to make time for it. Eventually, what I started with was recently, because I know that when you reach that height, you're usually satisfied with, okay, like for you, I was really relaxed. And that's something you can actually recreate and sustain if you can sustain that the practice. So I started with this, okay, every day I'm going to do 2 minutes. That's it. And then I'm going to stop the app. I just need to do it for 2 minutes for 10 days straight. And that's it. Okay. So I have an alarm. It shows up. It says 2 minutes. And, you know, no matter what it is I'm doing, whether I'm in the middle of doing dashboarding or something, I can stop for 2 minutes and just do some breathing. Even if it has no effect on me, just the mere fact that when the time came, I knew what kind of mindset I had to go into to just sit for 2 minutes and then be back, and nothing has, like, my life hasn't turned upside down because I was gone for a few seconds. It gave me the confidence to, okay, 2 minutes, now maybe let's try 3 minutes, and then 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes. And I'm still building up, but just this discipline of finding the time for it, it feels really natural. And it's surprising because when I started, I thought that I didn't have, or that it just doesn't fit into my life, or I have to do like a lot of work to make it fit. And I highly suggest if you're mildly interested in dealing with or being more mindful, start stupid simple. Like don't try
no
like that simple. Like
what I've been doing recently is, and not necessarily, and I've not necessarily been going the best way about it, but I'm getting there, is trying to declutter my environment, and I try to do that as well as possible together with Joanna. Shout out to Joanna.
Lots of shout outs this time.
It's my fiance. And trying to declutter our living space because we spend a lot of time in it. And like, I don't know why, but recently it started to get on my nerves more and more that there's always stuff somewhere. And I was getting really...
sure.
Yeah, it was getting under my skin a little bit. I don't like. I really don't have the best ways of then expressing that. Like it comes out in a burst of frustration.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but
that's fine.
Like yesterday, I managed to achieve a level where I was like, okay, this is nice. Like I look around the room and that already makes me relaxed. Whereas I was before looking around the room and I was like, no, this is stressful.
Yeah.
Just because of the stuff, and I don't know how to solve it. Like I don't know where to put all of this stuff. So yeah, but now that's going better. It's I like that improvement a lot. It gives me ease of mind. Also gives me like I have control over my direct environment, this little empire or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, basically Miro's territory, the cat. Shout out to Miro.
Yeah.
But
well, the cat owns the house now.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Careful if you were thinking of having one.
Yeah, so it's nice to also to come home and then there's of course you've been at work and then you want to just like unwind, and yeah, that's a lot easier when it's not filled with when things are neat and it's clean and there's not stuff everywhere. So yeah, it's going pretty well. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Cool. So looks like let's call it a day.
Sure. Yeah, we've been talking for quite a bit. I don't know how long.
I don't know.
For an hour and 2 minutes. So yeah, that's
Okay.
quite a bit. That's usually what I get down
How does it feel being in the driving seat of your own car?
to. Yeah, pretty good actually. It's not bad. Yeah. I don't know what I could talk. I talk quite easily. I notice about. I can ramble on quite easily.
We all like to talk about ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why podcasts work.
Yeah. But do people also like to listen to people talking about themselves is the question. I don't know.
We'll find out.
Yeah. Maybe next time we'll try and incorporate more jokes. Yeah. We'll see. Thank you for listening. And don't forget to like this video or heart this soundtrack on Spotify and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, and be on the lookout for Bram's book whenever that may or may not be coming.
Yeah, that's gonna take a long while.
Be on the wait.